fact, they were rammed multiple times.
And on top of that, China issued a radio challenge warning of so-called consequences if the Philippine ships refuse to leave Scarborough or Panatag Shoal. Here's the rest of that big story from News 5's Gio Robles, who was aboard the BRP Datu Bangkao during this water cannon attack.
This is the footage caught by News 5 of the exact moment that the Chinese Coast Guard collided with BFAR's BRP Datu Bangkao. This happened at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, 10 nautical miles southeast of Scarborough Shoal. The video fully captures the impact of the collision. The collision also scrapped some paint off the PCG boat. In another video, you can hear the screeching of metal as the two vessels came together. Around noon, this Chinese maritime militia vessel appeared to intentionally ram the BFAR boat. BRP Datu Bangkao collided with the Chinese side at least thrice. That's on top of repeatedly being attacked by water cannons.
Yung flag, pinupuruan yung flag. Lakas! Ayun, lakas! Yung aircon!
The severity of the attack led the BFAR personnel to think that the Chinese ship was trying to sink their boat. Before the water cannoning, the two sides even exchanged radio challenges. The China Coast Guard even sent out what it said was a final warning.
One more time warning. You must leave this sea area immediately. Otherwise, you will take full responsibility for the consequences resulting.
To that, the BFAR responded.
You are inside the exclusive economic zone of the Republic of the Philippines. We must stay clear of our route and please review your chart. Over.
After the encounter, BRP Datu Bangkao had extensive damage. Huge dents were found on the side of the boat, as well as its railings. The water cannons also destroyed the boat's portside navigational line, which serves as the ship's light source. The Philippine Coast Guard says they are conducting an assessment of the state of other navigational features of both the BFAR and PCG vessels that may have also been damaged due to China's water cannon attacks and ramming. The assessment includes the ship's radar, antenna, and other navigational features. The Philippine Coast Guard says China appears to have become more aggressive.
This is the first time that we can say that the Coast Guard vessel has been subjected to a direct water cannon. Despite of all the provocation of the Chinese Coast Guard, our Coast Guard vessel and BFAR remains to be there. This goes to show that we're not going to be deterred.
Despite the incident, last Tuesday, the BFAR pushed through with its mission to provide free diesel to Filipino fishermen. This took place, though, in the waters of Zambales and not in Scarborough, as initially planned to ensure everyone's safety. For News 5, Gio Robles, We Are One News.
As in the past, China insists that their Coast Guard acted well within their rights and that they have sovereignty over Scarborough, which they call Huangyan Island.
Huangyan Island is an inherent territory of China. The maritime police vessels and official vessels of the Philippines are intruding into the waters of Huangyan Island without the consent of the Chinese side, thus seriously infringing on the sovereignty of the Chinese side. In accordance with the law, the Chinese Coast Guard took the necessary measures to firmly remove them. China advises the Philippine side to immediately stop its infringing and provocative actions and not to challenge China's firm determination to safeguard its sovereignty.
The U.S. Department of State, on the other hand, condemned the repeated harassment of Philippine vessels in Scarborough, as well as the move to install floating barriers in the area.
Our belief is that the Chinese Coast Guard installation of these barriers also endangers Philippine fisher folks' livelihoods and prevents them from exercising their legal rights to fish in those waters. These are rights that were set out in 2016 in a final and legally binding judgment in the Philippines-China arbitration brought to the 1982 Law of the Sea Convention. And consistently, and this is something that the Secretary made clear on his travels as well, is that we urge the PRC to respect the navigational rights and freedoms guaranteed to all states under international law.
Other allies that came to the Philippines' defense were Japan. Japanese Ambassador Endo Kasuya tweeted, concerned about the recent incident around Scarborough Shoal, dangerous actions including the use of water cannon against PCG and BFAR vessels undermines the safety of ship and crew. While French Ambassador Marie Fontanelle said France is concerned following the new incident in South China Sea and renews call for respect of the UNCLOS and of freedom of navigation. We oppose any threat or use of force contrary to international law.
At a press briefing today, PCG spokesman Commodore Jay Tarriela spoke about China's forceful assault and how this has elevated tensions in disputed waters.
Well, if we're going to look at how it bended the railing of the Philippine Coast Guard vessel because of the water cannon, obviously that would be very fatal. The Chinese Coast Guard now has elevated the tension and the level of their aggression as well towards the Philippine Coast Guard vessel. This is the first time that we can say that the Coast Guard vessel has been subjected to a direct water cannon with that kind of pressure that even resulted to structural damage of the Philippine Coast Guard.
Joining us over the phone tonight to talk about this latest water cannon incident is Commodore Jay Tarriela. He is the Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea. Commodore Tarriela, good evening. I know it's been a busy day for you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, good evening, and also a pleasant evening for all your viewers.
Commodore Tarriela, before we get into the details, I wanted to know if you could help us set this into context. Do we know at this point how many times Philippine Coast Guard boats or ships or vessels have been water cannoned by China, either this year or in the past 12 months?
Well, the last time that the Philippine Coast Guard was experienced water cannon was last August. But it's different, no? The pressure of the water cannon that they used before is not the same as this, that is, I consider to be fatal. The last water cannon happened in August during the resupply mission that we escorted the Unaiza May. But again, this kind of water cannon attack is completely different.
There was also an incident in March, right? I think that was in the second Thomas Shoal, if I recall correctly.
No. During the water cannon in the second Thomas Shoal, it's only the Unaiza May that were subjected to water cannon attacks.
Okay. Not Philippine Coast Guard ships.
Not the Philippine Coast Guard vessel.
Commodore Tarriela, could you describe to us how strong 200 psi water pressure is? How dangerous is that? And were they aiming specifically at navigational systems, our equipment? Were there certain targets of the water cannon?
Well, for me to describe how fatal the pressure of the water cannon is that I think it's quite obvious for us to at least understand that this water cannon that hit the railing of the Philippine Coast Guard vessels were bended. Even the canopy behind the fantail of the Philippine Coast Guard was also totally destroyed. So you can just imagine if this kind of pressure with so much 400 psi will hit a person. No, it would definitely be fatal. So at the question whether are they targeting really specific equipment of the Philippine Coast Guard and BFAR vessel, well, we noted the fact that when they targeted the BFAR vessel, they are really aiming on the antennas of the BFAR vessel that supports communication equipment and also the navigation equipment of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources.
All right, Commodore Tarriela, taking it back to before this whole thing happened, knowing that Bicolano is happening somewhere there in the disputed waters, did the PCG and the Bureau of Fisheries expect some sort of leveling up in terms of harassment from China?
Well, I don't see that there is a connection with the Bicolano exercise and how China responded in this humanitarian mission that we're conducting in Bajo de Masinloc. Because we know for a fact that even before this Bicolano exercise, last March, during the resupply mission in Ayungin Shoal, the Chinese Coast Guard have already started elevating the tension by using more powerful water cannons. So I don't want to believe that it's because of the ongoing Bicolano exercise that it is the reason why they choose to also subject the Philippine Coast Guard to another water cannon attack.
All right, and has there been some sort of a tactical changes in the way that you conduct these resupply and rotational missions? I think some time ago there was that talk of, we must change our tack or change our strategy and how we conduct these because of the increasing tensions. Have we put this into execution?
Well, on the part of the Philippine Coast Guard, we are still going to assess the damage done by the Chinese Coast Guard. As a matter of fact, the Philippine Coast Guard vessel and the BFAR vessel are on their way back to Manila. And then from there, we're going to make a formal report, submit that to the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. And as to the changes of the operational approach or tactical details, it will still be decided by the National Task Force. And right now, that's something that we haven't discussed yet. It has to be elevated to the National Task Force if ever there will be any changes.
Commodore, can you describe to us what are the trigger points over in this area in Bajo de Masinloc? Where do the Chinese, or at what points do they start turning on the water cannons? Because we know that over in Ayungin Shoal, ang sabi nila, pag may construction materials na dala-dala, doon sila nag-water cannon. Pero dito naman, sa Bajo de Masinloc, what are the trigger points for these kinds of incidents to happen?
Well, thank you for a very interesting question. No? But let me highlight first what were the red lines before, during the time of the previous administration. During the previous administration, the red lines is that we're not supposed to go near at a distance of 12 nautical mile radius away from the Bajo de Masinloc. But when President Bongbong Marcos was elected, and we already had the different National Security Advisor, Eduardo Año, being our chairman for the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, we have crossed that red line from 12 nautical mile mark to 10, 8, 6, 5. And then right now, for the past few months since we started the rotational deployment, even before, Coast Guard vessel and BFAR vessel can already come close to Bajo de Masinloc in less than 0.5 nautical mile mark. As a matter of fact, it's the place where we distribute the fuel subsidy and water and other food packs to our Filipino fishermen. That's how effective we were in challenging the red line of the Chinese government. So to respond to your question, what is the red line now that the Chinese government is elevating such level of aggression? When the Philippine Coast Guard in this particular incident was attacked by water cannon, we're only as close as 600 yards from Bajo de Masinloc. So on the part of the BFAR vessel, they were already 11 nautical miles away from Bajo de Masinloc. It means that right now we still don't figure out whether is this a random decision all at the same time. Because on our part, we were attacked around 9 o'clock, and then a few minutes after, BFAR was already water cannon, all at the same time, despite the distance that we have from each other. So I think there is a unified command from where this China Coast Guard vessels took their guidance or instruction to subject both the Coast Guard and BFAR to water cannon all at the same time.
All right.
What were sorry, you said there were a few red lines. What were the other ones?
Well, those were the red lines. I mean, in Bajo de Masinloc, that we're not going to cross the 12 nautical mile mark before.
Just
and the
that
same
mark.
thing with the
Yeah,
human
okay.
shore. Yeah.
Okay, and just speaking of lines, supposedly reports have it that they installed another floating area near the mouth of Bajo de Masinloc. Have we actually seen this? Anyone from the Philippine side? And also, what do we make of that? And tying it into it being an actual red line when Philippine boats or fishing boats seem to want to enter the Bajo de Masinloc?
Well, the Philippine Coast Guard was able to get a drone footage of the barrier that they placed there yesterday. Through the use of drones, we were able to see the 380-meter barrier. But it's also worth mentioning that when we interviewed the Filipino fishermen, the only time that they place that barrier is every time that they monitor the presence of the government vessels like Coast Guard and BFAR. Because even before we arrived there, while we are on our way, at a distance probably of 12 nautical miles, once they detected our presence, that's the time that they have placed the barrier. Now, if the question is, what did we do after we realized that there is a barrier? Well, on the part of the Philippine Coast Guard and BFAR, obviously they have more China Coast Guard vessels that are guarding the barrier together with the Chinese maritime militia. It's quite difficult for us to be able to come up with a plan on how to remove the barrier just like before.
Okay, so they actually lay it out when they know like Philippine boats are approaching, and then they take it out and do it all over again when Philippine boats approach again. Is that how it works?
Yes, Philippine government vessels, not just the ordinary Filipino fishing.
Speaking of capability to monitor, you also spoke about that capacity to monitor the Chinese research vessels that was spotted off of Catanduanes in northern Samar. There's a report saying that there are actually 4 Chinese research vessels. Can you give us more details on that, and what could they be doing exactly?
Well, it's a Chinese research vessel that departed Shenzhen port sometime mid-April, and then it crossed the northern part of our territory between Basco and Itbayat Island. And then it went down to Catanduanes. It even came close to the territorial sea of northern Samar, and then it went back again to Catanduanes. Right now, as we are monitoring that it's the eastern Samar seaboard. On the part of the Coast Guard and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, we are strictly monitoring this. Actually, the Armed Forces of the Philippines deploy their aircraft as well to closely monitor the presence of this research vessel.
Okay, pero tama po ba na 4 ang na-monitor natin?
Isa lang.
Isa lang. Okay.
Isa.
Okay, and is there any plan to, you mentioned that we will be monitoring, this is of course in the eastern seaboard, in the Pacific Ocean on the opposite side. Are there any plans to start maybe doing some sort of patrols on that area as well?
Yes, we are closely coordinating with the Armed Forces of the Philippines and of course the Philippine Coast Guard with the support of the Armed Forces. We intend to be able to deploy an asset to intercept this research vessel once it gets close to the territorial sea of the eastern seaboard.
And then lastly, Commodore, if you'll allow me a very basic, simple question. Some people are wondering, whenever these incidents happen, why do we never hit back? For instance, can we also deploy water cannons? Do we have that capability?
Well, our Coast Guard vessels are capable to use water cannons. But these water cannons are intended to do firefighting. This is actually part of our firefighting equipment for the purpose of maritime safety. Now, many people are asking, why can't we make use of our water cannon to respond with a water cannon attack being done by the Chinese Coast Guard towards the Philippine Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources? I know personally the sentiment of the Filipino people and also the Philippine Coast Guard. We also share the same sentiment, probably even more. But the guidance of the president is very clear. We're not going to be, provoked. We're still going to deal with them professionally. We're not going to be the reason of escalation. So no matter how unprofessional, how bully they are, we still choose to do the right thing in maintaining our presence in the West Philippine Sea.
Your choice of verb is interesting, provoke. Could we also not, because does this not also classify as defense? Of course, we will not hit them first, but if they hit the boats, again, could we not hit back?
Well, the point here is that if ever we're going to use the water cannon, with the bigger Chinese Coast Guard vessels that they have, with the smaller vessels that they have, what is the strategic relevance of a smaller vessel using water cannon against two China Coast Guard vessels who are bigger than you?
Yeah, prudence is the better part of valor,
Commodore,
as they
the
say.
president did mention that if somebody dies, a Filipino soldier, Filipino service person, then we can invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty. Is that a specific guideline that he has passed down to your level, to you guys on the ground?
Yes, actually, that was a response of the president during the COCAP conference when he was asked what will happen if somebody dies among the Coast Guard or the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And he mentioned that it would definitely trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to have to leave that there for now. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight. PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore Jay Tarriela. We appreciate your time.
Up next, Labor Day protesters clashed with police, and to disperse the crowd, they used water cannons. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. A different group of people was water cannoned today. Police jet streamed Labor Day protesters near the U.S. Embassy on Ross Boulevard earlier today. In the spirit of Labor Day, the groups were protesting the U.S. supposed control of the country's labor force and its natural resources, which they note is being encouraged by President Marcos. Initially, the protesters were barricaded by the police at Calao, but soon the rallies were able to get past the barricades and make their way towards the U.S. Embassy. That's when the police chased and began water cannoning them. Kilusang Mayo Uno said 6 rallies were arrested by the police. The PNP, for its part, said that the group did not have a permit to rally, but they maintained that they exercised maximum tolerance.
And over in Malacanang, also today, Labor Day, President Marcos ordered regional wage boards to review and adjust the minimum wage rates in their respective regions. Listen to this.
I call on the National Wages and Productivity Commission to review its rules to ensure that the boards are able to maintain a regular and predictable schedule of wage review, issuance, and effectivity to reduce uncertainty and enhance fairness for all stakeholders.
The president gave the National Wages and Productivity Commission 60 days to review the minimum pay of workers in the country, citing inflation. The regional wage boards are the ones that set minimum wages per region. Currently, the daily minimum wage in Metro Manila is at 573 pesos for the agricultural sector and 610 pesos for the non-agricultural sector. And this rate was last adjusted in July of last year.
A wage increase will certainly be welcome after the latest SWS survey showed that more Filipino families experience hunger in the first part of the year. Results of the survey conducted in March showed that the hunger rate in the country climbed to 14.2%, higher than the 12.6% recorded just in December last year. The highest incidence of hunger was recorded in Metro Manila, followed by balanced Luzon or areas in Luzon outside of the NCR. The hunger rate recorded in March was also higher than the annual rate in 2023 of 10.7%. This is also the highest since May of 2021, when the hunger rate was at 16.8%. Now, this Labor Day, the Labor and Migrant Workers Departments opened more job fairs nationwide for those interested to work both here and abroad. DOLE says there were around 64,000 job vacancies on offer. Major mall operators like SM and Robinsons participated, with thousands flocking to their malls nationwide early, resumes on hand. Apparently, there's high demand for customer service representatives, drivers, financial advisors, cashiers, and warehouse staff, among others. The DMW
or which came first, the chicken or the egg,
Yeah.
right? Kind of quandary.
Yeah.
But I trust that, at least it's a wake-up call. Seeing these numbers, my gosh, 401 to 500 is our highest.
I mean, to drop from 84th place to now 400th to 500 bracket is a pretty steep fall, right? But you're right. You're still
Kami pa rin number 1.
Yeah.
that's our only
Number
that's our only
401 to
takeaway.
500.
Kala pa namin yun. Joke lang. Baka magalit na siya.
Unfortunately, sports is not a criteria for the ranking.
Pumapasok sa volleyball ngayon, kaya pagbigyan mo na ako dito.
We're gonna pause for a quick one, but right after that, we'll be speaking with the engineer from Bicol who developed a thermal insulating powder that can be used as paint and apparently can also reportedly reduce indoor temperatures by up to 60%. That and more when the big story returns. Yeah, that's true.
So did I. It's not enough, but here is something that could help out with that. One Bicolano engineer developed a thermal insulating powder that can be utilized either as a coating or paint. And this innovation reportedly has the capability to decrease indoor temperatures by 30 to 60%. Let's find out more about the product we have with us tonight. The engineer who created this, Dexter de Castro, he's joining us now via Zoom. Engineer Dexter, good evening. Maraming salamat para sa oras niyo tonight. Holiday pa man din, but let's start off with the physics of your product. How does the science work to lessen temperatures?
Actually po, kasi lahat ng insulation hindi talaga kaya yung, kasi kung titingnan natin yung insulation po sa ilalim ng bubong. Ito po ay proven and na technology na inadapt lang po natin yung technology ng NASA na yung ceramic powder nilagay nila doon sa space shuttle. So, ang thermal insulating powder po ay isang additive na hinahalo sa pintura o anumang coating na siya naman ipinipintura sa bubong o sa outer walls ng bahay na tinatamaan o direktang tinatamaan.
Engineer, hello? Medyo naghang po kayo. Naririnig niyo po ba kami?
Actually, very interesting yung yung thermal insulating powder, no? Kasi I've been into these things, building houses, constructing.
Sustainability.
Marami ng bagong ngayon innovations ngayon when it comes to paint, and they don't come too expensive.
Right. Okay. Andyan na ulit si Engineer. Engineer, sorry, carry on. You were telling us na inadapt mo ito from the ceramic coating of the plates outside the spacecraft from NASA. Carry on po. Sige.
Yes po. At ang kagandahan po nito ng technology ng thermal insulating powder is pwede mo siyang ihalo hindi lang sa pintura. Hindi. Kung halimbawa magpapatay kayo ng bagong bahay, pwede niyo siyang ihalo doon sa cement mortar o yung tinatawag nila palitada, yung pag-smoothen ng walls. So doon pa lang po, labas-loob, pwede niyo yung gamitin. And then, pag smooth na naman noon, bago magpintura, yung skim coat, pwede niyo na naman ihalo doon. And then, pag nagpintura na po, 3 coating, so bali labas-loob, meron kayong 5 layers ng protection. So para kayong naka-vacuum blast yung buong bahay, no, na hindi talaga papasok.
Okay. Engineer, alam namin na meron na rin naman talagang mga thermal insulated paint from big paint brands. Paano po nagkaiba itong additive powder ninyo? On top of that, nabasa ko rin syempre sa internet na mas mura ito. Tinignan ko rin sa Shopee. Around how much yung cost savings in terms of effectivity?
Yes, ma'am. Ang kakaiba po dito is nakikita mo mismo kung ilan yung ilalagay mo sa pintura. Kasi sa US po, nasa 5,000 per kilo ang presyo nito. Doon pa po yan. Wala pa po yan buwis at wala pang ibang gastos. Ito pong insulating powder na product na ginawa ko is ang cost lang po dito is almost 12 pesos per square meter per coating. Ang ayo po nito doon sa insulation foam na 85 pesos per square meter. So kahit 5 beses nyo siya ilagay, mga nasa 60 pesos pa rin. O almost 50 pesos yung yung presyo ng powder na ito. Nakikita nyo po, hindi katulad po nung yung pintura na may insulation, hindi nyo alam baka isang kutsara lang nilagay doon ng powder tapos sabihin na insulated powder na. Ito po kayo mismo makikita nyo kung ilan yung nilalagay. Ganun po siya ka-effective. At meron po kung saan gustong kulay, kung anong brand ng pintura ang gusto mong paghaluan, and kung saan talaga yung sikat ng araw, doon yung pakapalin yung coating na yun para may double protected po ang loob ng bahay sa init ng
Okay, engineer question, how does this work? Sa labas po, kasi nakikita po natin sa mga illustration ninyo, parang nagba-bounce yung init, yung sunlight ba yan, palabas? Paano naman po kung yung init ay galing sa loob ng bahay? Hindi rin makakalabas?
Hindi naman po kasi may lahat naman po ng yung na gumagawa ng bahay is meron pong tinatawag na natural ventilation na yung talagang init sa loob ng bahay. Naturally, inilalabas po yun. Ang problema lang po kasi talaga is yung roof na metal at yung wall na concrete is nag-a-absorb ng heat. Kahit gabi na, yun yung mainit na alingasaw na nararamdaman natin kahit gabi na. Andoon pa rin po yun. Mga 30% po yun. Kung mga hanggang 9 ng gabi, mararamdaman niyo po yun.
So, it doesn't solve that?
At isa pa po pala.
Oo. Nababawasan lang, kumbaga.
Yes, ma'am. Tama-get po.
Kumbaga, hindi po natatanggal yung ina-absorb niya na init, pero nababawasan nitong powder po ninyo.
Actually, ma'am, napakalaki po ng napapawas. Hindi naman po actually 100% natatanggal. 30 to 60% po. Yung nagsabi po ng 30% is yung Ma'am Sita Biner na in-apply niya sa buong bahay. Sabi niya is nabawas daw yung sa kanyang aircon bill from 10,000 a month, naging 7,000 na lang. Sa pintura pa lang po yun yan ginamit. So kung gagamitin niyo po yun sa pag-skim coat, gagamitin niyo sa plastering ng walls, yun na po yun yung aabot ng 60%. Kasi yung isa kong kaibigan engineer, ganun po yung ginawa niya. Nilagay niya sa plastering, nilagay niya sa skim coat, at nilagay niya sa 3 coatings sa labas-loob ng bahay, pati sa roof. So sabi niya, pag umaga, yung aircon niya, mabagal lang yung takbo, at paggabi raw, di na siya nag-aircon, electric fan lang, at press ko na, at pinit na sa loob ng bahay. Wala na po yung maalinsangang nararamdaman sa loob.
And then, how many kilos of the powder kaya do you need to mix into 1 gallon of paint?
15 to 20%, ma'am. So that's 150 grams to 200 grams per liter of paint. Parang isang baso lang po ng coffee. Maliit na baso.
Ang tanong ko, engineer, pag kunyari dinagdagan ko, di ba? Let's say, ito yung recommended mo. Pag dinagdagan ko, parang thinking na, mas lalong lalamig or mas lalong hindi kakapit
Can you
yung...
reduce heat by 100%? Ganun, ikaw talaga.
Ganun. Gagana ba yun? Or magiging mas...
Or may maximum na,
yun kasi,
may ceiling.
Right. Because this is silica, this is kaolin clay, mag-iiba ba yung, kumbaga, yung chemical composition ng pintura, nung...
Pati yung semento.
Nung semento, nung plaster, nung
Sa cement
pampalitada.
walang problema kasi matagal ng technology yung hinahalo ito. Yung nagiging ang soccer concrete pag hinalo mo ito ng mga 15. May study sa Japan, pag hinalo mo siya ng 15%, nagiging ang soccer concrete. Pagdating naman po sa pintura, wag pong lalampas ng 20% o 200 grams per liter ng paint. Kasi maapektuhan na po yung binding properties ng paint na madali na siyang, pag nagsobra ka po, dagdagan nyo na lang yung coating, gawin yung 3 coats, o kung gusto nyo pa, kahit isa pa, huwag nyo lang susobrahan doon sa 20%. Kasi baka hindi na dumikit yung...
Okay. Alam po natin, kayo po ay taga Bicol. Saan po ba available itong thermal insulating powder po ninyo? Is it already in mass production?
Yes po, available po sa ngayon online, Shopee and Lazada. And sana po, yun nga, mapansin at matulungan tayo para... Ako nga po, naghihingi ako ng pasensya kasi mula po nang na-televise ito at nakita sa buong Pilipinas, halos dalawang oras ka po kami natutulog sa dami ng orders.
Ang daming order. Hindi na ba pwedeng ilagay yan sa lumang bahay? Kung mga bahay namin ngayon.
It's built.
Pwede naman, di ba? Lalagyan mo lang ng bagong pintura. Ganun lang.
Po.
Engineer, wait.
Yes, po.
Curious ako, may patent ka na ba? Nag-apply ka na ba ng patent?
Patent pending po, ma'am. Actually, meron po akong unang patent na approved na. And then may dalawa po akong patent pending na dalawang product. Isa po ito.
Ang galing.
At huling question, kasi sobrang curious ako. Anong klaseng engineer po kayo? Are you a chem-eng or civil-eng, mech-eng?
Civil engineer po, ma'am. So medyo, yun nga, ang sabi nga nila na itong product na ito is talagang matagal na, dyan na, marami na nauna, which is totoo naman po. Pero dito pa sa atin, wala pa, hindi pa siya available.
Locally.
Yes po. And ang ginagamit ko po is, dito yung resources po galing mismo dito sa atin sa Pilipinas.
So made of all local materials, yung kaolin clay, yung silica, dito nyo sinosource?
Yes po, ma'am. Dito na po galing lahat.
Okay, may mga tanong yung mga cameraman namin. Tinatanong nila kung pwede daw ba isa kotse.
Pwede po ilagay siya sa... Ang problema po kasi yung kotse is, yung makinis sa labas. So, ito po medyo textured pag hinalo nyo to sa paint na pang kotse. So, medyo magaspang ng konti yung at dahil nga po doon sa powder. Pero sa ilalim po, pwede. Diba, ayun yung maramdaman yung init ng makina, ipintura nyo doon sa wall, doon sa buong paligid ng makina.
Okay, and so nagde-develop ka ba ng some other products? Kasi like you said, hindi ito nag-a-apply sa lahat ng materyales. So are there more plans?
Yes, ma'am. Meron pong yung sinasabi nyo na sana sa paint ng kotse, kailangan mas finer na particles yung gagawin ko and sana po ay yung magkaroon ng ng suporta government sa
good luck. Basta wag niyo lang mamahalan.
At sana bibili na si Gretchen bago ma-sold out sa online shopping yung product mo, Dex Pro TIP. Maraming salamat sa oras mo tonight, Engineer Dexter de Castro. Alright, wala na tayong oras. Time for our big pictures for tonight. What you're about to see, or what you're seeing now, are photos of two hills of the famous Chocolate Hills in Bohol that caught fire last night. It took 3 hours for responders to control the grass fire. Ito namang picture na ito, yung aftermath yan nung sunog. Authorities are still investigating the cause of the fire, but the extreme heat is being looked at as a cause of the blaze, as the heat index in Bohol yesterday hit 41 degrees Celsius.
The Chocolate Hills being in the headlines again.
I know that the chocolate hills
Maybe there's a...
are not brown anymore. Nakakalungkot siya.
What is it about the Chocolate Hills, huh?
Well, it does look chocolate now.
At first, I thought the
At least
resort
we
burned
didn't see
down.
the resort.
At first, I really thought na, yun nga, it was the resort burned down, but actually it was 2 uninhabited hills. I guess, as Regina always says, we're gonna leave this as the final word. Kung may climate change deniers pa dyan, ewan ko na lang sa inyo. That's it for the
No,
day.
it's a grass fire though, so well, it's related to the heat, of course. But yun nga, I don't know what the.
We do know that it's going to take some time to grow back again, right?
A long
Similar
time.
to
A long
Mount
time.
Apo. Parang ganun din dito.
Okay, so here's to hoping that hindi na siya mag-worsen because it's already May 1. And as Pag-asa said, iinit lalo.
That's right.
Steadily this month. That's it for the big story tonight.
Can we plant some trees on the Chocolate Hills to make them resilient?
There are no trees over there, just grass.
Oh, plant. We
Good
continue to
question.
look
I
for
don't know why.
solutions, right?
No.
We are One News All Sides all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.